Neighborhood nightmare. How my EV charger unleashed Suburban mayhem. I never imagined a simple electric car charger could turn my life into a real-life suburban horror story. After my divorce, all I wanted was peace and quiet. I traded shared walls and noisy neighbors for a cozy house in Maple Ridge Estates, a place where I could finally relax on my porch with a beer and forget about the wreckage of my past. At 42, I was done with fighting, especially after the exhausting battle with Vanessa, my ex, who walked away with the house, the better car, and most of my savings. I just wanted a little slice of tranquility. The whole was barely a blip on my radar when I bought the place. The realtor mentioned some minor regulations to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic, but I was too preoccupied with the bigger picture to pay much attention. I wasn't looking to cause trouble. I kept my property tidy, paid my dues, and mostly ignored the endless emails about community standards. Then I bought a Tesla Model Y. I was sick of sky-high gas prices, and frankly, it was a practical choice. The only problem, charging it. The nearest public station was miles away, and the thought of wasting my evenings in a parking lot was unbearable. So I hired an electrician and installed a level 2 charger on the side of my garage. Simple, right? It took less than a day, and that evening I plugged in my car, feeling like I had finally joined the 21st century. But that's when the trouble started. The first letter arrived innocently enough, a pristine white envelope nestled in my mailbox. The tone was polite, but the message was crystal clear. Dear Mr. Calloway, it has come to our attention that you have installed an unauthorized electric vehicle charging station on your property. Per the Maple Ridge Estates bylaws, all external modifications must be approved by the Hoa Architectural Committee. Your charging station is considered a violation. Please remove it within 14 days to avoid further action. Unauthorized. My driveway was my property, and I wasn't exactly building a skyscraper. It was a charger, not a neon green eyesore. I shrugged it off, figuring it was a minor misunderstanding. Days later, another envelope appeared, identical to the first, but this time with a veiled threat of potential fines. Then, the avalanche began. A week later, the fines started trickling in $50 a day for non-compliance. Then the violations multiplied. Suddenly, I was getting notices at every perceived infraction. Trash cans visible from the street. Grass allegedly overgrown by a fraction of an inch. My car's rear bumper extending a meter inches over the driveway line. It was a deliberate, suffocating squeeze. A calculated attempt to make my life a living hell until I caved. I tried to ignore them, hoping they'd eventually give up, but they were relentless. One afternoon, I arrived home to find a man standing in my driveway, staring intently at my charger. He was in his late 50s, dressed in the uniform of Suburban Authority, a polo shirt, khakis, and a name tag clipped to his belt, Bill Matheson. It read, the Hoa President himself. As I stepped out of my car, he turned, his voice dripping with rehearsed politeness. Evening, Ryan. I simply nodded. He gestured towards the charger. We need to talk. I crossed my arms, my patience wearing thin. Are we talking, or are you just here to tell me what to do? His veneer of politeness cracked slightly. This charger is a violation. No, it's not, I retorted, trying to keep my voice level. There's nothing in the bylaws about F chargers. The board has the right to enforce community aesthetics, he said smoothly, as if reciting a well-worn script. We need to approve any visible modifications. I scanned the neighborhood, a monotonous landscape of beige houses, all identical in their blandness. Half the homes had satellite dishes bolted to their roofs. But apparently, my charger was the visual abomination. It's in my driveway, I pointed out. It's visible from the street. So is your mailbox? I couldn't help but snark. He didn't appreciate my humor. His lips tightened. If you don't remove it, we will escalate the fines and take further action. I stared him down. Like what? His silence spoke volumes. I refused to budge. The following week, I found a lien notice in my mailbox. The Hoa was claiming unpaid fines and threatening legal action to collect them. They could potentially take me to court, even foreclose on my house if I ignored them. That's when I called Daniel Carter, a lawyer I knew from work. After reviewing the letters, he leaned back in his chair, a grin spreading across his face. They screwed up, he announced. Illinois has a law that protects homeowners from HOA letters banning F charges. A knot in my chest loosened slightly. So, they can't do this. They can try, he replied, but they'll lose. He drafted a letter, citing state law and demanding the fines be rescinded immediately. We sent it via certified mail, making it clear I wasn't backing down. Days turned into weeks, but still no response, only the relentless accumulation of fines. Then, one night, I came home late from work and noticed something was wrong. My charger wasn't working. I checked the breaker, but the power to the charger had been cut, not by me. Someone had deliberately tampered with it. A cold dread washed over me. This wasn't just about fines anymore. Someone had physically messed with my property, crossing a line I never imagined they would. I stood there in the darkness, staring at the charger, my hands clenched into fists. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app. My house had a basic surveillance system, a doorbell cam and a side camera overlooking the driveway. I scrubbed through the footage, searching for anything out of the ordinary. And then I saw it. At 2:17 a.m., a shadowy figure walked into my driveway. Medium build, hoodie pulled up, face obscured. He moved with a purpose, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. He crouched by the charger, did something with his hands, then vanished into the night in less than 30 seconds. I played it back twice, my pulse hammering in my ears. He hadn't even hesitated. This wasn't a prank. It was a calculated warning. I immediately called Daniel. It was late, but he answered on the second ring. They cut the power to my charger. I said, skipping the pleasantries. There was a pause. Did you check the circuit breaker? It's been tampered with. I caught someone on my security camera. His voice turned sharp. You need to call the police. I exhaled slowly. And say what? That the hoe is sending people to mess with my stuff. If they're cutting power to your property, that's criminal tampering. He insisted. You don't need to prove it was them. Just file a report. You need documentation in case this escalates. I knew he was right, but I also knew how this would likely play out. The police would take a report, maybe do a cursory patrol around the neighborhood, but that would be it. No arrests, no real consequences. I'd be left with a useless piece of paper saying, yeah, someone messed with your charger. Good luck with that. Still, I had to do something. I called the non-emergency line. The officer who arrived was in his late 50s, sporting a thick Chicago accent and a weary expression that suggested he'd seen far too much pointless suburban drama. Officer DeLuca, his name tag read. So he began, tucking his notepad under his arm. You're saying someone came into your driveway and cut the power to your car charger. I pulled up the security footage on my phone and handed it to him. That's from last night. He squinted at the screen. Can't see their face. No license plate. He handed the phone back. You got any enemies? I let out a humorless laugh. Just the HOA. His expression remained unchanged. They sending you letters? I nodded. They've been finding me every day since I installed it. Then this happens. DeLuca scratched the back of his head. You know, I get a lot of these HOA disputes. Half the time, it's just some old guy on a power trip. They ever threatened you directly? I thought back to Bill Matheson standing in my driveway, his thin mouth tightening when I told him I wouldn't remove the charger. If you don't, we will escalate the fines and take further action. At the time, I assumed he meant more fines, but now I wasn't so sure. Not directly, I admitted, but they're trying to push me out. DeLuca sighed. I can file a report, but without a face or witness, it ain't much we can do. You got any other cameras around? I shook my head. They're my advice, he said, shifting his weight. Get better cameras and keep your head down. These HOA letters, they don't like being challenged. I clenched my jaw. Yeah, I'm starting to notice that. He gave me a knowing look. I'll file the report, but be careful, mister. Callaway, some fights ain't worth having. I watched him leave, his patrol car disappearing down the street. As I turned back towards my house, my mind raced. This wasn't just about a charger anymore. It was about control, and I wasn't about to roll over. The next morning, I called an electrician to assess the damage. He confirmed what I already suspected. Someone had deliberately cut the wiring, not just flipped the breaker. Whoever did it wanted me to know they'd been there. I had the electrician repair the connection and install a locked breaker box, ensuring no one could tamper with it again. Then, I ordered 2 additional security cameras. One for the front yard, another for the side of the house. And then I went digging. If the hole was going to make my life a nightmare, I was going to uncover exactly how deep their hypocrisy ran. I spent the next few days researching Maple Ridge Estates, the whole board members, their finances, and the bylaws themselves. And that's when I stumbled upon something interesting. The whole had a history of selective enforcement. Certain people, long-time residents, friends of the board, were allowed to get away with things that others were fined for. There were houses with unapproved modifications. A guy down the street had an oversized shed clearly violating the bylaw regarding outbuildings. Another house had a fountain in the front yard, even though decorative structures over a certain height were supposedly banned. But the real kicker, Bill Matheson had solar panels installed on his roof without her approval. I found a meeting agenda from a year prior where a homeowner had requested to install solar panels. The board, led by Bill, denied the request, claiming it would disrupt the uniform look of the neighborhood. But Bill, he had them, and there were no fines, no violations, nothing. I leaned back, staring at my screen. They wanted to talk about aesthetics, about enforcing the rules fairly. This wasn't about rules. It was about who was allowed to break them. I cracked my knuckles and pulled up my email. I wasn't done yet. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering every piece of dirt I could find on the horror. Not just the petty fines and double standards, but something bigger. Something that would bring their whole operation crashing down. And then I found it. I started combing through public records, poring over her financials, board meeting minutes, and old disputes. Most of it was the usual horror nonsense. Arguments over fence height, landscaping regulations, and parking violations. But buried within a county records request, I uncovered something truly shady. The HOA had been charging homeowners special assessments, extra fees for supposed maintenance and improvement projects. But there was no record of the money being used, no invoices, no contracts, nothing. Tens of thousands of dollars had been collected over the years, and yet no one knew where it had gone. And at the center of it all, Bill Matheson. The HOA had approved payments to a fake landscaping company, a company that, according to state business records, didn't even exist. The listed business address, Bill's home address. He had been paying himself with HOA funds. It was embezzlement, plain and simple. I sat back in my chair, my heart pounding. I had him. I had all of them. But I wasn't going to report it just yet. I wanted them to squirm first. The monthly Maple Ridge Estates HOA meetings were usually boring beyond belief. Just a handful of elderly residents bickering about shrubs and property lines. But this time, I made sure it would be different. I started talking to my neighbors, especially those who had been unfairly fined or harassed by the HOA. It turned out I wasn't the only one who'd been targeted with ridiculous violations and unjust fines. People had been afraid to fight back, worried about potential retaliation from the HOA. But once I showed them the financial records, once they saw concrete proof that Bill Matheson had been stealing from them, they were furious. By the time the HOA meeting started, the local community center was packed, standing room only. Bill Matheson sat at the front, flanked by the other board members, looking smug as usual. "Let's get started," he announced, flipping through his papers. First on the agenda, I stood up. "Actually, Bill, I have something to bring up first." His smile faltered. "This isn't an open forum yet, right?" "Yeah, well, I think everyone's going to want to hear this," I replied, pulling out printed copies of the financial records and starting to distribute them around the room. "This is a breakdown of the last 5 years of HOA expenses. And guess what? Thousands of dollars in special assessments have been paid to a company that doesn't exist." A collective gasp filled the room. Bill's face paled. "That's a serious accusation. If you're implying..." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts," I said, my voice ringing with conviction. "The money was funneled into a fake company, registered to your home address." Want to explain that? Murmurs spread through the room as people flipped through the papers, whispering to each other, anger building with each passing second. Bill shifted in his seat, attempting to force a smile. "This is ridiculous," he stammered. "This is just misinformation." I held up another document, a formal request for an audit, which I had already filed with the Illinois State Attorney General's office. I also sent copies to the County Fraud Division, the State Housing Authority, and IRS. I added, my voice calm but deliberate. "If you don't feel like explaining it to us, you can explain it to them." Bill visibly swallowed, his forehead glistening with sweat. One of the other board members, a woman named Marianne Lewis, examined the papers and turned to him, her voice laced with suspicion. "Is this true, Bill?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The room exploded. People were shouting, demanding answers, some furious about the stolen money, others enraged by the fines they'd been paying for years. The entire room had turned against him. And then, the real kicker, one of my neighbors, a guy named James, stood up and declared, "I'm a cop, and I can tell you right now, this is fraud." Bill's hand started shaking. He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. I need to talk to my lawyer." "Oh, don't worry," I said, folding my arms. "You'll be talking to a lot of lawyers." He bolted for the exit, leaving behind a room erupting in chaos. 2 days later, he was arrested. The aftermath was swift and decisive. The horror crumbled overnight. Bill Matheson was charged with embezzlement and fraud, facing serious jail time. The remaining board members scrambled to distance themselves, but the damage was irreparable. A full audit was ordered, and when the truth came out, every homeowner who had been unfairly fined received a full refund. And the best part, the HOA was dissolved. The state ruled that Maple Ridge Estates had been mismanaged beyond repair, and rather than try to salvage it, they shut it down completely. No more horror fines. No more power-hungry board. Just a normal neighborhood. Oh, and my AF charger, I kept it plugged in every night, a silent reminder of who won. So tell me, based on everything you've heard, do you think I handled this situation correctly? I'm eager to hear your opinions and insights on how I navigated this suburban battle. So please share your thoughts and perspectives on whether I made the right choices in dealing with the horror and Bill Matheson actions. I appreciate any advice or comments you might have regarding the best course of action in this type of situation, or if you think I missed the opportunity to handle things differently. I'm all ears.